What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie, and this is part 19 of my reviewing and ranking Phish's live Phish series, the penultimate entry in the original run of live Phish series. After this, there would no longer be volumes, and they would just go by dates. I'm going to go through 20, and we're going to take a Phish break. We're going to do some other stuff. We might go back to Phish at some point, but right now we're on volume 19. This is a complete show. From July 12th, 1991. This is the tour, the summer tour, when they had the giant country horns, a three-piece horn section that consisted of, let's get their names right, Dave Grippo, Russell Remington, and one more person in this three-piece, what's his name? Carl Gerhard, trumpet, two saxophonists. I think the first two that I said, the former two, would play with Trey years later, right? 2 discs, the complete show. And I'm going to start this off by saying I'm not a big fan of horn sections. If your band originally has a horn section, all right, yeah, that's part of your band. If I like you because you have a horn section, I'm always going to like you. But if I already like you prior to a horn section, I'm not really interested in seeing a horn section live. Like, if you're going to incorporate it into an album, I think chances are the songs are going to be written specifically for the horn section, and it's just going to work better. But when you already have this catalog of songs that pre-existed that are strong enough to attract a following, most of the time the horns, to me, are going to be intrusive, unnecessary, unnecessarily intrusive, or just are going to sound off because a lot of people don't know, or a lot of musicians, it's just the tone that's used or what the horns are doing. It doesn't interest me. That's to begin with. But then Frank Zappa happened when I was like, what? Well, I heard that when I was like, what? 19, 20 years old, best band. A couple years later, heard Make a Jazz Noise here. And Frank completely like took wherever the bar was for me, which was already kind of high, but also impossible to overcome because nobody did it well. And just set it up like up there, like on my ceiling, on my roof probably. Because what he did on the 88 tour is what should always be done with horns. He had done it on 76, but the first time I had really heard it like where every song was rewritten with horns. Like the horns were integral to the sound of that band. They weren't just like, hey, Keneally, Willis, Tunis, carry the song and we're going to layer horns on top. No, the horns were the songs. And then, of course, when they got to solo sections, those 5 musicians were so talented, plus Bobby Martin on his sax, that like you didn't care, right? It was all fantastic. They made a jazz noise here. It was legit. A lot of bands don't do that. And for this, for the most part, this show is fighting the fact that it has horns in order for me to enjoy it. I'm not a really big fan of early Phish. I like early Phish. I think they were fantastic. This is when I started listening to them. This is why I became a fan. But when I go back and listen to Phish now, like I want to hear jams. I want to hear stuff in 94, 95, 98, 2000. I want to hear those really stretched out, ambient, 35-minute things. The longest song on here is 11 minutes, and that's a David Bowie. 11:31, and it's a Reba, which includes the break and includes whistling. This is still a pretty fantastic show, despite the fact that there are a number of songs that the horns, I'm like, no, don't. I don't want them. I don't need them. Please get rid of them. There are also a number of songs where the horns work and work really well. And even though none of these jams are epic and like by today's standards going back, like obviously this is very early Phish, right? This is like you get like a 4-minute Reba jam, Well, what is that? We need 6, 7 more minutes. Reba's a bad example. It's generally kind of reined in. But you're not getting anything epic, which is what I'm seeking in Phish at this point. I want to revisit a 35-minute Drowned. That's what I want. But all that being said, this is a really good show. And even though the playing is shortened, it's incredibly direct, incredibly effective. The band sounds great. The recording sounds great. The rhythm section, Fishman and Mike particularly are just bringing it. Trey is just so reined in and tight in like the best way possible and focused. Page sounds great. The set list is kind of fun. So even though, as I consider this disc, there are strikes against it from the beginning, The band kind of overcomes a lot of these obstacles, though I still have problems. Let's address the horns first. There are a number of songs I just don't think the horns work at all and actually kind of take away my enjoyment of the song. The Landlady, the horns do not work for me at all. It feels like they should. It feels like, this kind of vibe that this has should work well with horns. It doesn't. I don't like it. I think there's horns in David Bowie that I really don't like, right? The only one in the first set that doesn't have horns is Reba. There's no horns at all in Reba. I don't even think they try, which is a good choice. There's horns in, I really don't like the horns in, something really, really bothered me with the horns. I don't think I liked it with the tweezer, though there is a good moment right before the jam where they do this little fun, intense build-up before they drop down. That's kind of cool, but during the song, I don't like it. There is something in this that really, really bothered me with the horns. I don't remember. I think it's the Landlady. But there's just a lot of times the horns seem intrusive, and I don't want them. But then there are a number of times where they kind of work. Dinner in a Movie, the opening track, that middle sort of proggy, jazzy section, the horns have taken over a good portion of it, a la something Zappa in 88, and it kind of works. And when I listened to this recently, because this is not something that is in my regular rotation, I was like, okay, maybe my memory of this is worse than what I thought it was. The Dinner in a Movie works. Then we get a Bouncing Around the Room. I just don't need the horns. Buried Alive. I don't need the horns. We get a Trey Anastasio, I guess, Flat Fee, which apparently is the first song I think he ever wrote specifically for horns in mind. Really short, 3-minute, fun little jazz song. Works really well with the other jazz songs that are in here. I think we got a Charlie Parker song on here. And then we have, I think, a couple Charlie Parker songs on here. And the Flat Fee works because that's the intent of the song, to have horns. Reba, there are no horns, but it's a really nice, good, short, but really effective, to the point. Trey doing everything he needs to do, but in a short period of time. Reba solo, a really nice build. Mike is doing some really cool things in it. Really good, effective Reba for being an early Reba. The Landlady, don't like the horns at all. I think the solos sound like they're just all picking the wrong tone and the wrong idea for their solos. I don't like the solos that are included in this. Bathtub Gin kind of works because it gives it a sort of a woozy drunkenness, and Bathtub Gin should have a woozy drunkenness vibe. So they work in Bathtub Gin. The solo's kind of cool, kind of fit, or the ending jam is cool. It all works together. A Donna Lee, Charlie Parker song, they cover that, works. AC/DC Bag, I don't need the horns in this, though it's a good AC/DC bag. We get a Rocky Top, which I don't think the horns are in Rocky Top. AC/DC Bag goes directly into Rocky Top. Cavern, they work in Cavern. It works really well because they drop it in those middle sections between like the verses, and that gives it sort of maybe a mysterious, lost, sort of disoriented type vibe, which I think works for a song like Cavern. And then we get a David Bowie, and the David Bowie is really good. What did I write for the David Bowie? Yeah, the horns, I don't like them. No, this is it. I wrote no. I underlined it. Yeah, do not like the horns in David Bowie. They seem intrusive. They're not necessary. There's already way too much going on in David Bowie for me to have horns laid over it. This is the one where early in the jam we get some weird horn stuff, not tweezer. But then the solo is just awesome. I really like the solo in David Bowie. And then when we get to the end, the horns kind of work also. But the beginning of it, they just seem intrusive. And I'm like, I don't want the horns. That's a me thing, right? I'd rather not have the horns. Pretty fun first set. Pretty solid first set. The Reba solo is really fun. Bathtub Gin, AC/DC Bag, David Bowie. We got some good jammy energy. It's not epic. None of these, I think, would hold a candle against the ones that we consider epic. But it's a fun first set, but I don't like the horns. Set 2 continues on disc 1. We get the first 2 songs, a Golgi Apparatus, and the Squirming Coil. I don't think either one of those have horns. No, I think at the Squirming Coil we might get some horns at the end. No, I don't think we do get some horns at the end of Squirming Coil. I'm going to check that really quick. I thought maybe that was the first 3 songs of this set. They didn't have horns. I didn't write anything about Squirming Coil, which means I like it, and it's a typical Squirming Coil. Yeah, there's no horns on Squirming Coil. And then next they debut, the first time I think they only ever play this song, Moose the Mooch, Parker song with horns. We get a tweezer. I just would rather not have horns in this. Really nice build up in this. Kind of, we build up the crazy tweezer jam, and then we get kind of a really kind of like, bring it back down and slow it down type jam to close it out. My Sweet One, Gumbo, horns completely working Gumbo. Yes, you need as New Orleans a vibe as you can get in Gumbo. The horns work. This song was meant to have horns. Yes. A Mike song, the horns get some screaming, awesome, I think it's saxophone solos. I think we get 2 saxophone solos in this Mike song. They're good. They kind of remind me of sort of like Zappa, Make a Jazz Noise here. Just sort of, I think it's that Dupree's Paradise where it's just like screaming and just like wailing and just that Mike song vibe is going on behind it. Really good Mike song. We get a Hydrogen. We get a Weekapaw. Really awesome solo in Weekapaw. Trey's letting out all of his energy that he wasn't able to let out in Mike's. Some really good Weekapaw energy. The Fishman song for this one, Touch Me by The Doors. Perfect choice. Well done. Good job, Phish. Maybe the whole Giant Country Horn things is worth it simply for Touch Me, because that's a stroke of genius right there. Then we get an Okipa, Susie Greenberg, and Susie has a history of having a horn or 2 in it, so that's not that's no surprise. The encore, we get 2 encores, like 2. An encore, and then we get another second encore. The first one has a Sweet Adeline, which you can barely hear because they're going off mic. We get a Frankenstein, which has some good use of horns. Then the second encore, we get a Fee, and then we get a tweezer reprise. And then the bonus track on here is a Big Black Furry Creature from Mars, which also has horns. And that chaotic middle section, when things are going crazy, I think the horns work well in that. During the actual sort of verse-chorus thing, I don't like the horns. I wish they weren't there. But it's nice to get a big BB, what did I always write on the set list? BBFC, FM, BBFC FM, Big Black Furry Creature from Mars. Yeah, acronyms. But yeah, that's what you get on these 2 discs. No epic jams, without a doubt. You get the horns. If you like horns, there's a lot of horns to like. If you don't like horns, I think there are pockets and songs where the horns are used very effectively. I would compare them to Zappa's use of them in '88. Maybe comparable, maybe on the same level. I think Dinner in the Movie, really successful. Mike's song, those solos are really successful. Cavern, it makes sense. Gumbo, it makes sense. Bathtub Gin, 5 songs, fully support the horn usage in 5 of the songs. Really makes sense. The other ones, some of them I don't like. Some of them are okay. Some of them are just like, all right, it's not that bad, but I'd rather them not be there. But yeah, this one was fighting a lot. So the question is, where did I rank this among the other 18 that I've done so far? And it got a little bit of a bump. I was actually expecting this towards the bottom, but it's right there in number 15. It's definitely better than that 89 show because I do think the jams, they've progressed a little bit more. And they are really, really quality solos. And that Mike song is pretty fantastic. And then the other stuff down there is just, they have moments, but those moments are few and far between when, other than the horns on this, which are not always bad, this is not a bad listen, and the sound is fantastic, and really the band just sounds absolutely fantastic. Everybody's in a good mood. The vibe is great. Set list is pretty strong. So yeah, it's at number 15. Not a bad, better than I really, really thought. I honestly thought this was going to be at the bottom because of the horns, because I really don't like horns, but they do use them well a number of times, and it redeems it to these ears. So that's all I got. Let me know your thoughts on this. If you go check it out, if you've already checked it out, all that kind of stuff. You know how it works, people. Go listen to it. Like, expose yourself to some new music. And it's not Phish at their best, but if you like it, you got way more other good stuff to listen to. So that's it. Subscribe, like, share, comment. Go listen to music, people. Go listen to all the music. Peace. Talk to you later.